So the May Ottawa Real Estate Board stats are out, and I'm going to break it all down for you in this short video. Some high-level things to note. This is the first time since February of 2022 that we are seeing an increase in inventory sold. We actually saw a 6% increase in units sold in May of 2023 in relation to May of 2022. So as I say, I'm going to break it all down. Just some high-level things are looking good. House prices are maintaining. Average sale price is $745,000. We are still in a seller's market, hovering around 5 to 6 weeks inventory available on the market. So still quite an on-demand market with not enough inventory to make up for all of the buyers. Also, just breaking, the Bank of Canada has announced that they are going to, or they have increased the policy rate by 0.25%, so 0.25% increase. And I'm going to break down at the end of this video what this means for the market itself and talk about other key dates. So be sure to tune in and stay to the end. So let's hop into the numbers itself. As I'm presenting here, you are seeing that there has been a total of 1,939 units sold for the month of May. This is an increase of 6%. When we look at the market back in 2022, we had 1,830 units. 2021, that was that really hyper COVID market. 2020 units sold, and then 1,300 units sold. So not a lot to explain in sort of what was happening there, but we are seeing a nice increase in bump from the 2022 to the 2023 May. When we look at the actual numbers itself, what I like to dive into is the days on market to see how are we doing? How long is a property on the market until it actually sells? So the average days on market residential class for the month of May was a total of 23 days. This time last year, so in May of 2022, it was 11. So we're seeing an increase of 106%, but this is more balanced. You know, property comes on the market, it does take a few weeks for it to penetrate the entire market, make sure we get the right qualified buyer for that property. So an average days on market is 23 days. Last month, the average is around 30. So it is coming down. This is typical for our spring market, May, and I have shared in other videos that we are a later spring this year. The typical seasonal real estate spring market is usually a February, March, but because of all of these changes with respect to interest rates and Bank of Canada and inflation rates, all these moving parts, we are being pushed out and actually in our spring market right now for the month of May itself. When we start to scroll down here, we look at the sales volume itself. So in this tab here, we're seeing number of units sold. So there was 4,600 sales in the month of May this year in relation to the month of May in 2022. So less units are sold for this month in relation to last month, but that is just because of lack of inventory that is available and presently on the market. When we go a little bit deeper down into the analysis of the data, one thing I was highlighting on the last video, and I'm going to highlight again, is if we look at the sales range and where the most amount of activity, look at the percentage increase in property between $400,000 and $700,000. We're seeing an increase of 72%, 75%, and 12%. So a big influx of demand for property between $400,000 and $600,000. If we look at the units sold back in 2022, there's only 59. Now there's 102, 156 in 2022, 273. Why? Well, that's just because the market's changing, the market's shifting. The cost to borrow is significantly higher today than it was back a year ago. So when people are looking at buying a property, what they might have been able to afford a year and a half ago, around the $700,000 or $800,000, is now more between the $400,000 and $600,000. On the other side of the coin, look at the decrease in value, or look at the decrease in sales volume between the million and $2 million. $25,000 decrease, 22,000, 25%, 22%, 20%, 52%. So we're seeing a decrease in the amount of units sold in that price bracket just because the cost of borrowing is so high now that when people are shopping around, their money doesn't go as far. So they are looking at property in that price point, you know, between that sort of $500,000 to $700,000. So that is the data. That's what we're seeing from a market perspective. It is the first time since February 2022 that we are actually seeing an increase in units sold. As I mentioned, we do only have between 5 to 6 weeks of inventory presently available for the buying population, which leads us to a full-blown seller's market, in that there's not enough inventory in the market to be in parallel with the amount of buyers that are available. I'd like to switch gears and talk more about some of the news that came out this week with respect to the rise in policy rates. So that the Bank of Canada rate has increased by 0.25%, so up from 4.5% up to 4.75%. And what is that impact for you as a homeowner, whether you're a buyer, seller, or have a current mortgage right now? Well, the news is if you're in fixed rate, day. However, if you are coming up to refinance, that is something that you will have to be aware of because these rates will be considerably higher likely than it was back when you signed your fixed rate term. If you have a variable rate, well, you are going to be bucketed within this ride. Like as we know, a variable rate goes up, it goes down, it fluctuates with the overnight lending rate. So this news of the increase of a quarter point will affect your monthly payment if you are on a variable rate. Let's dive into actually why the interest rates are starting to move around. So this is the historical inflation rates for Canada, and it goes all the way back until 2010. If we slow this down, look at 2022. The interest rates in January was 5.1, 5.7, 6.7, 6.8, 7, 8, 7, 7, 6, and then low sixes. So it kind of went like this and then started to come down. It saw the peak at 8% back in June, right here. June of 2022 was the absolute peak of the inflation rate. And then you'll see 6.3, and then it started to come down, 5.9, 5.2, 4.3, and then up in April. This is where the problem is. This is why we are talking right now about the 0.25% increase, because the Bank of Canada is not happy with this increase. They want inflation to come down. They're targeting inflation to be around 2 or 3%. So they were happy with the rates starting to come down. But obviously this did cause for concern. And that's why they have raised the overnight lending rate up by 0.25%, because the April announcement for what the CPI, so the super price index rate, coming up to 4.4%. That is the issue and why the Bank of Canada has stepped in to try and curb that. So these are the rates. This is a breakdown of where we started. So, if you look back in January of 2022, look at how cheap money was back, like the overnight rate, 0.25%. And then in March, it raised by 0.25. And then in April, 0.5 point, June, 0.5 point, July, 1 full point increase. That was a big blow back in July of 2022. Now, this is a lagging effect. We didn't see the everything all sort of transpire until we started to get into about 6-7 months ago when it started to really unravel. But look at what happened when the inflation rate started to level. No increase in March, no increase in April, but in June, we did see the increase of 0.25 point. So they have increased the overnight rate to 4.75 because they are trying to curve this inflation increase. And back to this slide here, the rate has gone up by 0.1%. So there's a lot of speculation of what the Bank of Canada was going to do on June 7th. It only did go up 0.1%, but they are trying their absolute best to protect this and make sure that they're bringing inflation down. So some large macro concepts here, but this is what we're up against. It is extremely difficult to really predict what this means holistically for us as a real estate market. And the data will share and prove to us what is actually going to happen. And next month, I'll be able to report back on what the numbers for the month of June will look like. Every time there has been a rate increase, it has cooled the market for a period of time. So if we were to predict the future, we usually look back historically to see what has happened. And historically, every time there has been a rate increase, it has leveled and cooled the market for a period of time. So let's keep an eye on what's happening. I'm always available to answer any questions you might have based upon the market holistically, or if you're talking about your specific neighborhood or pocket where you live. As I've shared in some of these videos, Ottawa is made up of micro neighborhoods in that there's a big difference between, say, Dunrobin and Merrickville and Rockland and Glebe and Bell's Corners and Alta Vista and Elmvale Acres and McKellar Park, and I can go on and on and on. I can quickly get live data and update you specifically what's happening in your marketplace if you have interest. By all means, reach out. Please do not hesitate. It would be my pleasure to help you make an informed decision and give you perspective on the market. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you, if I don't talk to you in the meantime, on the next video. Take care.